It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye. Hey everyone, it's Brother Aaron from Got a Minute. I'm going to show you some charts first. This one, and this one. We're going to talk math first, then we'll think with our brains and our hearts a little bit. And I think we'll do maybe a longer live stream on this theme in the future. So here's the mathematical analytical side. So you guys remember when I said the other day, I made this chart and I said, there's probably something very significant about 1743. And people said, well, I think it was the Hubble calendar or whatever you want to call it, the covenant with Abraham. But we all acknowledge that they're a couple hundred years off. So it's like, okay, I'll write that down for now. But I kind of wrote this. I said, there's probably something interesting there. And whoa, okay, I think I found something more significant here. So it looks like that this was possibly the year that Joseph was born. So I'll come back to that and I'll show you this. So Christy and I went to a thrift store the other day. We were just looking at stuff and we find this old looking Bible from the 80s or whatever it is. And they got all these genealogy charts in the back. I'm like, whoa, wild stuff. And so they've got the ages of Abraham. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it. They got the ages of Adam all the way to, to Abraham and the genealogies and all that. Here, let me zoom out. Maybe you can, if you want, you could take a screenshot of it. I'll hold it in such a way that you can get a pretty good view of it. So that's pretty good. I think they might have got off somewhere in here on this particular chart, but I'll show you this and I'll try and keep it still so you can take a screenshot if you'd like to. I'll put it kind of far. Let me see. Take a screenshot of that if you want, and take a screenshot of that if you want. Now, I think this book, we did the math and we added it up all the way up to Jacob's age. And I'm like, okay, all their ages seem to be correct. I think that if the creation was to start in 4004, right, and then you add all their ages, like BC and their deaths, and you kind of look through it, Terah being 130 years old. You can go to Acts 7 for that, Genesis chapter 12, and you can bounce around the Bible a bit. The point is, this birth suggests that Joseph was born in 1743 BC. And that was a date that's like, there's something probably significant on that date, right? That's what I was talking about. So it looks like Joseph could have been born in 1743. Okay, so let me go show you that other chart again. I'll get that chart, right? So that there was a timeline, and I was saying 43 to the second coming is a big deal. So if we find something significant, let's talk about it. So I think we did. So if Joseph was born in 1743 BC, that's 3,773 years from 2021. So 1743 BC, but before Christ, there was 3,773 years to 2031, our potential second coming. I believe that the rapture is 7 years before the second coming. So here we are in 2024. We're hoping to get out of here. You guys know the drill. We're speculating. We're thinking out loud. Well, Genesis 1:1, the value of that in Hebrew is 2701. Now, that in and of itself isn't too exciting, but if you multiply 37 times 73, you get the value of the Hebrew number 2701, okay? So if that weren't enough, see how the numbers are reversed, 37 and 73. This happens to be the 12th prime number, and this is the 21st prime number. Well, look at that. They're mirror images of each other, and those are mirror images of each other. Isn't that special? All right. And in addition, 2 is a prime number, 3 is a prime number, and 7 is a prime number. So that's neat as well. Okay, so here's the extra exciting thing is, we're not like 100% on this, but it seems pretty fair to assume that the 7 years of famine started when Joseph was 37, because he was given a bride, a Gentile bride in Genesis 41 at the age of 30. And then they had 7 years of famine, and then we had 7 years sorry, 7 years of plenty, and then 7 years of famine followed that. Okay, so bride, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. So you can assume that the famine started when he was 37 years old. Now it says in Genesis 50 that he was 110 years old when he died. That means he lived another 73 years. So 37 plus 73 is 110. Whoa, yeah. Okay. So the plot thickens here. So again, the math, if Joseph was born in 1743, 37 years from his birth, the 7 years of famine begun. And then 73 years after that point, he died. And so it's 37 times 73, Genesis 1, 2031, Joseph's birth. Okay, so there you go. So we got the numbers. You know what we're talking about here. And so let's just talk about the general themes of Joseph and turn the camera around. Yeah, so we might do a live stream down the road, but here's just some real quick notes here. So Genesis 41, Joseph marries Asenath, and the Strong's number is H621. We don't really find the definition in the Strong's there for her name, but H622, which is the word after it, would be Asaph, which means to gather and to collect. And so then through this Asenath, he has two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Ephraim means fruitfulness. And so Genesis 42, we have the brothers, they come the first time. And long story short, here's some grub, but go back to Jacob and we'll keep Simeon in jail while you guys are gone. And so we've got a lot of things going on with the brothers. We got like types and shadows with everybody. We got Benjamin, which means son of my right hand, and he stays with the father during at the beginning of the 7 years of the famine, right? So you got a type of shadow of Christ there. You got types and shadows of the rapture groups through these characters as well. You've got, Benjamin, son of my right hand, right? So we will be with the father during this 7 years of Jacob's trouble. So you got a little bit of a type of the church there while the brothers are dealing with the trouble, Benjamin. You also got a type of Christ being with the Father at his right hand, because that's what his name means, son of my right hand. But you also see the typology of Christ through Joseph. You also see the types of shadows through Judah. So, and you also see Simeon, who is put in prison. That's interesting too, temporarily while they went back to the Father. So, okay, so let me say it this way. We see types and shadows of Christ in the church through Benjamin, through Joseph, through Judah, a little bit through Simeon. Those are the four characters that we really see it. Okay. Benjamin, because Benjamin's son of my right hand and he's with the Father. Judah, because in Genesis, right around 44, he sort of stands in the gap for Benjamin. He's like, just let me be your slave forever. We have to bring Benjamin back to dad, because if we don't, he's going to die, like from his emotions, So Judah kind of stands in the gap there. So we've got a type of Christ through Judah. We have a type of Christ through Joseph, because he's the one that's sold into slavery in the first place. He's the one that's wrongly accused, and he's the one that ends up being second in command and forgiving them and being gracious and merciful to them. And Simeon is the other, a little bit of a church situation, right? So if you look at Joseph as a type of Christ, he puts Simeon in the house prison, and while they go back to talk with Jacob, but if you look at Joseph as a type of Christ, Simeon stays with Joseph, who is a type of Christ. And we read in Luke a couple days ago, that video I did with Simeon and Anna. He's the one that is promised to see the Messiah, right? And the Holy Spirit, it was moving on him. And the root word of Simeon is Shema, which means to hear and to listen and to obey and to really understand. And so there's just so many layers going on with all these guys' names and where they're from and where they're going, and who represents what. Just really interesting. But really, to sum it all up, Genesis 42, the brothers come for the first time. And then there's a second time, Genesis 43, that they come. And in the second time, Genesis 45, here's the big reveal. And it's the second time that they see Jesus, which is a type of Christ. Just looking for my Bible here. Because I wanted to read that one verse here in the great reveal. And really, Israel is blinded right now, and so too were Joseph's brothers blinded during this whole time. The first time they were blinded, they didn't recognize Joseph, who was a type of Christ at the time. They didn't quite recognize Joseph until he revealed himself. And he says this, Genesis 45, verse 4, and Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. So they came near, and then he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. So this is what he's going to tell Israel at the second coming. And so that's why all this math is exciting, pointing to this whole thing. And then at the very, very end, on his dying bed, one of the last things he said to them, he's being like a type of Christ here. Genesis 50, verse 19. Joseph said to them, do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. And so Jesus came to save and to heal. And we have such a perfect type shadow to the second coming, when their eyes, their blindness, which is they're blinded in part until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. They're not going to really see the entire story until the second coming. But there is their perfect type and shadow in the brothers, under Israel, under Jacob. And you see it. The first coming, they didn't see it. The second time they did. In the names of Judah and Benjamin and Joseph, a little bit of Simeon. You see types of the church, types of Christ in these names, and how this is all going to play out long term. And what we have here, and I'll show you the chart one more time before we go here. I'll turn it around, and 1 second. If this chart is correct, and Joseph was indeed born in 1743, that's 3,773 years from 2021. 37 times 73 is the value of Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Isaiah 46, I think it's verse 10. I declared the end from the beginning. Ooh, yeah. Joseph probably was 37 when the tribulation, or the 7 years, I should say, a famine started. And then he lived another 73 years until he died. I think this is God's stuff. If this is true, this is God's stuff. And I expect to fly soon, if that's the case. But if not, we just keep our hands on the plow and we keep on going. So one day closer, seeing the clouds, whenever that is, get tight with Christ, and go, Jesus, go.